One of the cool things about being Linda is, I don't know, this is more than just Linda. How many drinks did you bring up today?
Oh, I have 2 drinks.
So I've been seeing more and more of these memes on Instagram.
About what?
Women
with all their drinks.
Multiple drinks.
It is so true.
Why is it true?
It's so true. Well, this is a warm beverage, and then that's water. Like, I feel like I always have water on me.
You feel like you have to go back and forth?
Well, yeah.
I don't know if I have ever had 2 drinks at the same time. Like,
that's weird. That's not true. If you go to a restaurant, they always bring you a glass of water.
all right.
And then if you
what
order
I mean.
anything else, then you're going to have 2 drinks.
Okay, that's different. I'm saying...
Oh, why is it different, though?
I'm saying I don't think I've ever left the house with 2 different drinks. And you do it all the time.
Well, yes, I do.
Anyway,
I do. You also don't drink anything else but water, really.
That is pretty true.
Like, if you have a Topo Chico, that doesn't really count because that's also water. Like, you don't drink coffee. You don't really drink much tea.
So I'm curious. Let us know. Send us a DM on Instagram. Where do you fall on this spectrum? How many drinks do you bring? What is the appropriate amount of drinks to bring?
I don't even feel like I bring that many. Like, there was one time when I had a tea or a chai or something with me, a smoothie and water, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I felt ridiculous.
It's getting to be too much here.
But if I have my morning caffeine and water, that feels like that's not that much.
Okay. All right.
Especially if it's like we're going to church, like we're leaving first thing in the morning. I need both of them.
All right. Well,
I don't know.
anyway. Okay. So that's the...
You started that out with, what's great about being Linda.
well, you get to bring 2 drinks. That's what's great.
Do you even have one? You're going to steal my drink
I
because
have
you
no
don't
drinks.
even have one.
I don't have any drinks right now.
Well,
I'll be okay.
you're welcome.
Thank you, darling.
When you need it.
So, anyway, today we're talking about our, well, here's what happened. So, I've been getting questions about this, and we ended up getting a question somewhere along the lines, I'll just paraphrase. Basically, if you had to start over and give $1 million.
To try and give away $1 million again.
Yeah. Because, those of you who've been around, like that was our biggest financial goal. Like we wanted to do that by the time we were 40. Mm-hmm. And we hit it just a couple minutes shy of the deadline, or a couple of months. and anyway, so I was thinking back on this. I'm like, all right, so what would this look like if we had to do this over again? And what are the things we would do to get there? And really, that's what this checklist was birthed out of. So we kind of broke down what we're calling our 14-point checklist to give away $1 million. Now, this isn't a step-by-step exact thing you need to follow because everyone's journey is different. Everyone's situation is different.
And everyone's income is different. It's
everything's different.
Yeah, everything's different.
So it's not about that. But it is, my hope is that this will give you some ideas and hopefully, if nothing else, just allow you to see what worked for us, what we did to get there, and what we're doing to get there again. So
this is literally just a practical application of, what would we do if we had to start over again?
Yeah, and some of it gets a little bit specific.
Is there spiritual stuff in here also?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh,
a little bit is stepped in. But but we'll dive in and just kind of explore some of that in a second. Would you mind turning off the AC?
Oh, I just heard it click too. Got it. Of course, now we can hear it.
There's the AC.
I got it.
And it's running. The beat
just
keeps running.
Couple 10 seconds shy of.
This might be a good time for a drink.
Oh, would you like a drink?
You feel like you're sharing?
I mean, I just got this new cup and I'm really excited about it. It's cute.
It is a good cup.
But it doesn't have to be cute. Like, it could be good for guys. They make different colors.
But
it's glass. And
You've been drinking out of stainless steel for a long time.
Drinking out of stainless steel. And apparently it's just like, it's fine. I was talking to a friend today and she's like, I gave her a piece of gum and it said aspartame free on it. And she goes, oh, great. I don't want Alzheimer's. And I was like, do you know that aluminum cans cause that too? And then I told her something else and she was like, what? And I'm like, basically everything causes cancer. So I mean, we live in America. If you eat any food in America, almost all of it is going to cause cancer. So I'm like, this is where the blood of Jesus comes in, and you just have to be like, Lord, you've numbered my days.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we make bad decisions, but...
Yeah.
But anyway, stainless steel is apparently not as good for you as just straight glass.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
true?
remember, I feel like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I do remember years ago, it felt like everybody was like, oh yeah, just drink out of stainless steel, don't drink out of plastic. And now I feel
they're
like
like
transitioning to glass. But anyway, so this is a glass cup. Do you really feel like if the kids throw this on the floor, it's not going to break?
No, I don't feel like that. And I told them they're not allowed to touch it. I was like, if I see one of you touching my new cup,
every single
that's
glass
the end.
that you have,
I have had several glass
break.
cups that they've
every single one that you like.
Everything that I like, actually, they've broken. I had this really pretty bowl from Anthropology, and Oliver just threw it on the ground like, oh, well.
Like a Greek wedding.
Yes.
Like,
well, no, he did it on accident, but he was carrying it up above his head, like as like a fun way to carry it. And I was like, oh no. And my hands were full, so I couldn't grab it out of his hand. And then down it went. Anyway,
right.
It's fine.
Okay.
Let's get into it now that the air stopped.
All right. So first up on our list.
A long intro.
Yeah. So first up on our list is to start giving a percentage. Okay.
Yes.
And so this is where I think everything begins. And so going back to, I think when we first started our financial journey, and you might have been different, but for me, you probably were different because you were a lifelong tither.
I was a lifelong tither. I grew up in the church, and
so you've always been giving a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like when I was babysitting with my babysitting money, my parents were like, 10% goes to the Lord. And I'm like, okay. And I just, because of the way I grew up, I was just like, okay, that's just what I do.
Yeah. But I do think, I mean, I just think that's a great habit, a great habit to start. And I think it's awesome that it's like, it's always been easy for you.
Because
there's so many people.
It's been a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's never been a question for me.
Yeah. But regardless, I think the percentage thing is a big deal because I didn't start giving a percentage, like I didn't tithe when I was younger, and I very much was giving. Well, I hated giving on top of that. But then when I did begin giving, it was just kind of like, oh, whenever I feel like it or whenever I have extra.
Look how far you've come.
Or whatever.
What the Lord has done in your life.
That's what he does.
Amazing.
You hang out with Jesus, he starts changing you. And so anyway, that was a big deal for me when I finally started giving a percentage, because what that does is it locks it down and it makes it happen more consistently, which is super important. But it also makes it sets you up for success because it adjusts with you. So as you earn more money, it automatically increases your giving.
Well, and it's that scripture that says, do what you've decided in your heart. Like, it's real easy to be swayed one way or the other when you're sitting there at the offering plate. With the offering plate coming by. I don't even know if there are offering plates anymore, but you get the idea. Where it's like it comes time to give, and it's real easy to go one way or the other. Like, go way over, like, let's give everything that we have, because you are in love with the Lord, and you have those moments in church where you're like, everything is meaningless. I just want to give everything away.
Yeah. And
then you also have the other thing where you're like, oh, shoot. Like, we were like, oh, man, the air went out. The air conditioning unit broke. And we were like, do we give? Do we not give? You have those questions. But if you have already decided I'm doing this, like, I think that's what's so powerful about God saying, I want you to do what you've already decided.
Yeah,
just follow through on it.
2 Corinthians 9, for anybody who's curious, wants to read more about that.
Just following through on it is so good.
Yeah. And, and the other thing I would add to this percentage thing is this is great because you can, even if you are at 1%, you can increase that by 1% per year, and you just won't even feel it. You won't even notice it. And we've been doing that the last 10 years, and it's like we haven't felt it. It's just been like the frog in the pot of boiling water type of thing.
Right.
Like, you're just sitting there doing it, but it just keeps up going with, it's
we
just a
feel
really, really powerful
much more
thing.
The ups and downs of, what the business is making, right? It's like, that's what we feel. We don't feel the giving portion of it.
Yeah. So anyways, that's the first thing on the checklist. Now, second thing where I want to go with this and what I want to touch on is following the Never 100 rule. And so this is, we talk about this in our book, Simple My Rich Life, if you haven't checked it out. We also talk about this in our True Financial Freedom class. And this is just such an important concept. And the idea here, like, it's incredibly important that we get to this point where we are not spending 100% of our income. And most of us who have heard anything before about money, we know that this is, oh yeah, I shouldn't spend 100% of my income.
Everything.
But it's so incredibly important. It is the one golden rule of personal finance, because without it, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It doesn't matter how much you save. It doesn't matter how good you invest. Like, none of the stuff matters
how smart
without
you are,
that.
how disciplined. Yeah.
Like, that is the one thing that matters more than anything else. And that's why it's so essential. It's so critical. And so that is just such an important key. Like, if you ever want to be able to give away a significant amount, like, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to follow the Never 100 rule.
Yeah. Just these 2 points right here are really, they're pretty big deals. I mean, I think they seem like something that is not going to make a difference and that doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
But this is actually something that is like huge. So as we go through the rest of this list, just keep that in mind. Like, it might seem like, is that really gonna do anything?
Yeah, and it is. I'll just tell you, it is. It's a really, really big deal. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people about money, people who have done really well, really poorly. The basics, the fundamentals are the most important things. I remember Michael Jordan just talking about this, about the idea of, like, what made him so great was that he worked so hard mastering the fundamentals. It wasn't like, because, like, you go watch the Globetrotters or something, if you remember them, or all these guys doing all these tricks with the ball and stuff like that. And, like, that's all great, but if you can't do the fundamentals, none of that matters. I remember I was in a
like
band.
that with everything.
I was in a band in high school with a drummer, and I loved him. He was the nicest guy in the world. And he could do, like, the coolest things on the drums and the coolest fills and all this stuff, but he could not keep time to save his life. So every single song would start out at whatever, 80 beats a minute, and then he would go up to 100. It's like every single song got to the same thing. Like, he couldn't do the one fundamental thing that drummers are supposed to do. And anyway, so point in all this is mastering these fundamentals is so incredibly important. So don't overlook this. All right, so that's number 2. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 is using a spending plan, or a budget, if you will. I know it's a bad word for a lot of people, but using something.
The B word.
The B word that you can stick with, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a comment on this?
This is one of those things for me that I was like, first of all, don't box me in. I hate this. I do not want to do this. But
you are.
And also that I'm like, that's not going to work anyway. And it is exactly the opposite. There's so much more freedom that I have.
When done right. That's the thing. That's the caveat.
Right, sure.
It's got to be done right.
And we have all kinds of tips and tricks on how to do that. So
yeah, we're not going to go miles deep on that right now.
We're not doing that. Yeah. But it's like, this is one of those things that's like, if you're not doing this and you don't think it's going to work, I don't even know what to say.
Well, just try it.
I really encourage you to give
you.
it a shot.
Let us help you with it.
And that, I think, too, is one of the biggest testimonials we've heard.
Well, I think when it comes down to it, there's no way we could have reached that goal of giving away $1 million without that.
True.
Absolutely. I mean, in all 3 of these that we said so far, and I think there might be some on this list where maybe, I don't know, maybe they weren't as important, but there's absolutely no way we could have done this without this. This is the thing. I like to call this, I remember hearing someone call this a lifestyle design blueprint. And that's what's so powerful about it, is you design the life that you want, where you want your money to go, rather than having it tell you where it's going to go. And that's the game changer. And so for us, we knew from an early age, when we were dating, that we wanted to give millions of dollars away. And therefore, we created the spending plan, we created the budget to do that, to allow us to move in the direction we wanted to go with our money. And so whatever that thing is that God's calling you to do, whatever that thing is that you deem most important, this is the thing that's going to help you get there and move forward in that direction.
Yeah, and you think that it's the opposite. You think, well, I mean, I'm just going to make those decisions on the fly, but that's just the wrong way to make those decisions.
Yeah.
And that is the big key here.
It's just so much less efficient, and most people just don't realize that. All right, next on this list is make a habit of selling everything that doesn't get used.
Yeah.
Okay? So I wouldn't call this the fundamentals. I would call this starting to get into some of the nerdier specifics. But But I will say that this has been a habit that I've had for a long, long time that I think has just played a significant role in all of this. And I'm not going to go miles deep on really a lot of these things because a lot of these individual points that we're making, we've talked about in other podcasts or in our book or in our course or whatever.
Right.
But I'll try to give you the high level here. But there was a study done by this group, NPD group or something, and they found that the average U.S. household has over $7,000 worth of things that could be sold on eBay
I can't believe
or
that.
Facebook Marketplace. And I would have never believed that. But we've done this 3 or 4 times where I've taken a couple weeks, gone through our house, just found all the stuff that I'm not using, old gear and this or that or whatever. Like
Old baby stuff is a big
baby
one.
stuff, like all kinds of stuff. And just said, all right, I'm going to take a weekend, like list all of this one Saturday and just try to sell as much as I can. Like we had one 30-day period where we sold made over $2,000 by doing this. We've had multiple other 30-day periods where we've made over $1,000 by doing it. And so anyway, so I'm starting to believe that stat a little bit, So again, like that's the average U.S. household. Sure, you might not have that much in your house, but point is you probably got something that you can make some money on. And so this has affected my buying decisions. And so all this plays together now to where I make buying decisions based on what I think I can sell something for. And so I don't buy a lot of things where I think there's just not much value in it, because at the end of the day, most things I buy, I'm not going to use for the rest of my life. So I might as well have an exit strategy for it.
Yeah. And you really do. You're like, this is what it's selling for on eBay. If I buy it for this much on eBay, I can probably sell it for the same amount that I bought it for, Or sometimes it makes more sense to buy new like you.
And the coolest thing about this...
He means this.
The coolest thing about it is that this often allows you to actually buy something better and of higher quality.
Right.
Because those are the things that tend to hold their value. And oftentimes that actually is the better deal in the long run after you end up selling it, So anyway, so it's just a little bit of a... Yeah, so that's our number 4 on the list.
Yep.
All right, number 5 on the list is building an emergency fund of, let's say, $1,000 to $3,000. Okay. And this leans into point number 6, or item on number 6 on the list. But the thing here is, I think for us, we were just typical in that we had a whole bunch of credit card debt. We're overspending on things. Just didn't have a lot of discipline with our spending. Racked up a bunch of debt. Do I really need to? Do you want to speak for yourself? So that was our situation. We just had a good amount of debt, and as we were trying to climb out of the debt, get that taken care of, having an emergency fund was helpful as just all right, this is something that we can back things up with. And that way, if an emergency comes up, we have some money here. We don't have to put it back on a credit card and dive back in that hole.
Or take it out of our giving.
Yeah.
Which can be a real temptation.
Yeah. And so that leads to point number 6, is just to pay off all of our credit cards. Okay. Right. And again, like some of this feels obvious restating this, but again, these are the fundamentals. When you have credit card debt that has whatever, 15, 20, 25%, it's like an anchor that is weighing you down, holding you back from moving forward in your financial progress. So if you imagine a boat on the water with an anchor, it's like, even if you're going to move a little bit, it's dragging in the sand. You're not going very far, very fast, And so that's why this is so important to get rid of that. And as we got ours paid off, it's like, all right, there's so much more cash here that's available to put towards the things that are more important to us that we want to put money to. And for us, a lot of that was giving. So this was a significant role, played a really significant role and part in us being able to give away $1 million.
And just a random side note, when we were asking and believing God to pay off our debt, the Lord asked us to give more.
Yep.
Just throwing that out there. If you haven't heard that story, where is it? Is it in the book?
Probably.
It's gotta be in the book.
Yeah, we talk about it. We talk about the True Financial Freedom course as well. But anyway, we've had that experience multiple times where God seems to
and we're like, are you serious?
Lead us in a different direction. All right, number 7 is decide to never take a car loan again.
Oh.
Okay, so again, I learned this lesson from a millionaire mentor of mine when I was in my early 20s, and he said most Americans destroy their possibility of having any sort of financial freedom by 2 decisions that they make: the decisions they make with their cars and the decisions that they make with food and eating out. And I have found that to be so true.
That's one of those ones, honestly, that kind of stings.
Yeah, no, it is, but it's just true. Like we as Americans spend so much money on our cars between the actual car and the car loan and the car insurance and the car maintenance and the gas and like everything there that is involved in that. And then it's the same way with eating out.
Yeah. Well, and now it's grocery bills.
Well, grocery bills, eating out, like it doesn't really matter. Food
But yes,
in general.
grocery.
But yeah, there's just a lot of room to save there. But
eating out is the big one.
But anyway, coming back to this car loan thing, like that was one of those first things where once we paid off that first car, it's like, all right, let's just keep driving this thing. Let's drive it for free, which was amazing, because I had always had car loans. You had always had car loans. We didn't know what it felt like to drive a car and not have to pay a loan.
Yeah, that was pretty.
And so then we just took that extra money, started putting in a savings account, and then buy the next car with cash a few years later. And, it's not a super amazing car at that point, but just keep doing that. And we've bought all of our last, 4, 5, 6 cars with cash.
Yeah.
Just by continuing that pattern. And so we haven't had to pay any of that interest. We've saved tens of thousands of dollars of interest payments now.
It's to the point now where people are like, oh, my car payment. And I'm like, oh, you have one of those?
It's like, yeah, we've forgotten what it feels like because it's been so long.
Right. Because it is, like, once I hear that and factoring it into like, oh, shoot, what if we had to have a car payment right now? And I'm just so thankful that we broke out of that cycle.
Yeah.
But it does take a little bit of work to break out of the cycle.
It does take some work. It takes some work and some sacrifice in that you're probably not going to be able to buy your first $40,000 car with cash. Like, so you're probably going to have to start with something a little bit cheaper. But that's the other thing. It's like you can get a 10-year-old Honda that is well taken care of and is a really nice car, and you can get that for so cheap. And so it's a lot easier than I think a lot of people think to kind of break out of the cycle.
Yeah, I will say that was one of the things I was surprised about is because when you were like, no, we're going to get a used car. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I want the new car smell. In my head, what I really wanted was a clean car.
Yeah.
Like a super clean car. And it's like, that's actually not that difficult to achieve. Even if you buy it off a person and you're like, this isn't, as clean as I want, you can get it detailed for like a couple $100s. And you're like, oh, this feels like a new car.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've done it to our own car. Gotten it detailed before. And I was like, this was the best. I think it was only like $80 for us. I was like, this was the best $80 we have ever spent on this car.
I remember that guy came over to the house. Like he came.
Oh.
And I don't know if this is the same one. But anyway, he was out there with a toothbrush on this car for like 3 hours. And I'm like, wow.
I think that's when we sold one.
Okay. I'm like, so this is how you clean a car.
With a toothbrush.
But anyway, point is that you can make a car feel really, really nice.
Really nice,
and on top of that, the new car smell, for as fun as that is for some people, it's actually toxic gases.
All right,
in case you're curious. You'll have to play doctor.
That'll give you cancer.
But,
that'll give you cancer too.
But anyway, so yeah, it might even be better to not have a brand new car for that reason. Anyway.
I did hear this story about this guy who bought this brand new car and he was like super excited about it. And he gets into this car and it was like every time it would like sit in the sun or something, he was like, the smell was so strong and so bad. He started getting so sick and he gave the car away because he could not get rid of it fast enough. He was like, I can't sit in this car another minute.
There you go.
Can you imagine?
I imagine.
All right, I'll be right back. Go ahead.
All right. So number 8 on our list is learning how to invest wisely. Okay. And this was a really, really significant part of us kind of reaching that goal. And if we were going to start over from scratch, this absolutely be one of the first things, because this is how we took what we had and how we multiplied it into something more. Because at the end of the day, you can save and move forward, with addition in that direction as you kind of save and accumulate money, by doing some of the things we're talking about, and maybe with selling some things in eBay and collecting some extra cash. But it's when you multiply it, when you begin adding that multiplication factor, that you really start seeing things move forward. And so this was such an important and critical part. And so this is something definitely to consider. And we, written about this a decent amount on our website, so you can read more about that on our blog over at SeedTime.com. Or we have an investing course that we call our 10X investing course, that's where we just lay everything out and go through our entire strategy, everything that we used. But the point is, regardless, you want to figure out how to multiply the money that you have been entrusted with, because that is the thing that's really going to move things move things faster. All right. So number 9 on our list is to prayerfully set career goals. Okay. So kind of when we were early on, we were kind of dreaming about all this and figuring out what we were going to do. Like I had this realization that, all right, if I want to give away $1 million or millions of dollars, really is what it was, I'm probably going to have to earn more than my $35,000 a year that I was earning at the time. Like that salary wasn't going to get me there really, really quick, you know? And so that forced me to kind of ask some tough questions about all this and ask some questions about like, all right, my career path, is this going to get me to where I want to go and to be able to make the impact that I want to make? If I continue doing what I'm doing for the next 5 years or 20 years, like where am I going to be? You know, another question along those lines is like, am I actually utilizing the gifts that God has put in me? And really, I think that ultimately led me to realize that I was kind of on a dead-end career path.
Yeah.
And
but you knew.
Yeah, but that really solidified it. And, you know, and that led me to start praying about God. I don't think it's going to get me where I want to go, and I don't like where I am. I didn't know how to fix it, but that's why prayer is so important in here because God can fix these things that we can't, you know, and then he gets the glory, which is the way it should be.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened for me. Like, and he made my way of escape through a layoff. And it's like, it's not the path I would have chosen, but it's like, in hindsight, it was the best thing. It was the perfect thing I needed. It got me exactly where I needed to be, doing the work that he's gifted me to do.
But see, I mean, that is something that is so important to keep in mind is like you said, he made my way of escape was through a layoff, which is terrifying news to most people. But when we are in the position of God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, which is us, then we know that something that seems terrifying, actually, God can see us through it in a way that blesses us, but also other people around us too.
Yeah.
And like this business exists because of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you're listening to this, like just
this is why.
That's one of the reasons why. And I remember you coming home and being like, "Oh, I'm getting laid off." And the two of us just sat there like, what do we do now? You know? Like it wasn't just, it's easy in hindsight to be like, yeah, it was great. I got laid off from the job I hated, but it didn't feel like that when we were walking through it.
When it happens, it's like, you don't know what's going to happen.
How are we going to pay our bills?
Yeah.
Like we were barely making any money anyway.
Yeah.
And so for you to get laid off, it was like, well, okay.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, number 10 on the list is to determine your true hourly wage. And this kind of ties into the previous one, but this is a really powerful exercise, and we have another podcast and YouTube video. I'll try to link it up in the show notes or, you know, in the description down below, where we kind of go through this exercise and exactly what this looks like. But it's a really powerful exercise to do because so many people just look at their annual salary, look at their hourly rate, and think that that's what they're actually getting paid. And the truth is that's just way off. It's almost always way off. And the accurate way to do that is to determine all the other expenses that are at play. And so in my case, in my corporate job, like I had to drive 35 to 40 minutes every day to work, from work. I had to buy extra gas to do that. I had to buy a lot of different clothes to go do my job. There were all these unaccounted for expenses. And so I worked 8 hours a day, but I actually was gone closer to 9.5. So that has to factor in. You know, so the point is you add up all the actual hours you're spending, and then you add up all the actual dollars that you're spending and all of that, and you kind of you go through this process and you can determine what your true hourly wage is. And it's super helpful for like, you know, if you or your spouse is trying to figure out if you should stay home with the kids rather than send them to daycare, like this is super helpful because there are situations where it might make a whole lot more sense financially, you know, to stay at home rather than to do the job that you're earning $12 an hour on paper, but actually only $6 an hour when it comes down to it, you know? So, all right, so that's number 10. Number 11 is to track your net given, okay?
This is a big one again.
This is a big one. And what we mean by that, again, this is in the giving section of our book. You can read more about it. But net given is where we are tracking the amount of money that we have given, real simple, right? Just a running sheet of all the money that we've given. And when you are paying attention to what you're doing, like you are going to do better at that thing, right? This is super obvious. Okay, like Pearson's law says, when performance is measured, performance improves. Okay, so when we're
I'm
actually
so proud of you for remembering all the P laws.
Oh my gosh.
Pearson's,
Pareto's, Parkinson's, it's all of them, all
you
the
know
laws.
them. You can distinguish between all of them. Good for you.
Good for me. Good for me. Anyway, but the point is that when progress is getting measured, it
Right.
improves, and so there's something about that. And so when we can be actually tracking, paying attention to this thing that's so important to us, to giving, we're trying to reach this $1 million mark. Like we need to be writing it down. We need to be measuring our progress, and so anyway, so that was a really, really big thing for us.
Well, and especially because I think you and I have kind of identified that our to be a success in terms of what God says is a success is not based on how much money we can accumulate or how much money we can make every year, right? It's like it's more dependent on how much we can give, especially because we feel like that is such a strong call on our lives.
Yeah.
So make sure you're tracking what matters to you. But specifically, if you're trying to give away $1 million, do this because then you'll know where you stand, you know?
Yeah, you get to see that progress, which is really, really fun and exciting.
Well, and you wouldn't have that. Wouldn't have that testimony if we hadn't tracked.
We would
any of
have
it.
never known.
We would have never known. We would have been like, man.
Which is stuff like still. Like,
I
would
hope
have
one day
no
we
idea.
get to it, you know, and
Like we would
we've
be
already
saying,
passed it.
we would be saying, yeah, I hope we get to give away millions of dollars. You know, we haven't given away millions yet, but we've given away $1 million. So I'm excited about that. But I have no doubt we would have no idea.
We would not know. Yeah.
Anyway, so really, really cool.
Yeah.
Number 12, work on your heart. Okay. Because we're talking about money and we're believers in Jesus Christ, we're followers of Jesus, like this is just such an important part, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you are trying to do something where you're bringing more money into your life, you know, the Bible obviously has a lot of warnings about money and wealth. But that to me, that doesn't mean, all right, let's just all try to stay poor and just not make any money, not use our gifts that God's put in us. But it means the opposite. It means let's take the gifts that he's given us, let's multiply them, let's make as much money as we can for his glory, you know, doing it righteously and honorably, but then also taking that and be able to give and have an additional benefit of what we're doing with it. And so we all know people, you probably do too, who have a whole lot of money or who have no money and are chasing money for the wrong reasons. So it's not about how much you have. It's all about our hearts, you know?
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of money, you can have no money, and have a heart that is chasing and lusting after wealth.
It's so true.
So it's not about the money, it's about our hearts.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we work on our hearts and keeping that heart pure. Number 13, spend more on what you love by cutting spending on the things that you don't.
There you go.
And we talk about this a good bit, and I don't know, I wouldn't say this was a major factor in us reaching this goal, but I do think that there's part of this, I think especially for you.
Indirectly, I think it's pretty important because what happens is if you're spending money on things you don't want to spend money on and you have less money to spend on what's really important to you, you're going to feel a lot stingier.
Yeah.
I think it's just a natural thing there. And, you know, of course, there's always times when it's like, we don't want to fix the air conditioner. I'd so much rather spend that money on something else, spend that money on, you know, clothes for me or another saw for Bob, you know. But, and what I mean is I want the air conditioning to work, so I do it. But it's like such a boring thing to buy. But when we're not spending a bunch of money on things that we don't really care about, like, I'm trying to think of what we don't really care about.
I don't know. What do
I
you
don't
not
know.
care
What
about?
is everybody else? Okay, there was one present that I bought for someone, and it was, he wanted a Stanley Cup replica. And I just remember thinking, I don't.
Well, and it was like miniature
feels-
size.
yeah, it was
like
miniature
coffee cup
size.
right?
And it was like $50. Okay. To him, that was super important. To me, I don't watch sports really at all.
Sports.
So there is no sporting game like the World Series, the Super Bowl, none of that. I would never spend my money on that. But if you find yourself spending money on things like that you're like, I don't really care about, and it's robbing you of like, but I do really want to go on dates with my husband,
Yeah.
but I can't because what happens is you start getting stingy. I know that's kind of an extreme example, but to me, it makes a lot of sense why this is in here is because it's hard to be generous when you don't feel like your needs are being met or even just some of the desires in your heart being fulfilled.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to like our approach to all this is one of balance. Like you can take some of this stuff to the extreme and live like a pauper, like in order to do the thing. But I don't know, like if you read, I guess it's 1 Timothy 6, when Paul's given instructions for the rich, of which all of us are rich. Let's be real. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably rich. And what that equates to. I have
a house for my car.
Yeah, like what that equates to is if you're making $30,000 to $40,000 somewhere in there, you're in basically the top 1% of the world. Mm-hmm. Like you're rich. Okay, so again, those are instructions for us in 1 Timothy 6, and there's instructions in there about enjoying the blessings of God, and so it's important that we do that, and we're not like. I went to a Jesuit high school and I learned a little bit about the Jesuits, and they would like beat themselves to flagellation. Is that what it's called, or something? Self-flagellation, something like that. Anyway, so it would like.
Is that when you have gas?
Well, no. And so they would. Anyway, they would inflict pain on themselves, and I don't know if it's to be more righteous. I'm not really sure exactly, but point is. Like I just believe that God loves his kids, loves his children, and I love my children, and I think we have that example of him being our father to, like, it's okay to enjoy something. It's okay to spend money on yourself.
Well, and we read all through the Bible about how God wants to bless us, you know?
Yeah.
And of course that means a whole lot of things. It means spiritual blessings. It means, I think it's, the blessing of having peace in your home, peace in your heart,
I think material blessings are like the lowest form of blessing in the grand scheme of things, but they're still blessings.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So we are not at all the people who are going to tell you, no, don't ever spend anything fun. Like we want you to, because, but there are some people who need to hear, well, you probably shouldn't spend all of your money on yourself. You actually need to give some more.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's why it's so important to be prayerful, to be reading the word, and to allow God to convict you and lead you in the right direction, because your financial situation is going to look different than everyone else's, and what you need to do in this moment is going to look different than everyone else's. So anyway, all right, number 14 on the list, the last one here, is giving beyond 10%, okay? Ooh. And I say this because I've encountered a lot of believers who, and I was one of them, who I'm giving 10%. I reached the finish line. I'm done. I got it done. And no matter how much money I make, I'm going to, 90% is mine, 10% is God's. And as I read my Bible.
That sentence right there, 90% is mine, 10% is God's. Yeah. That is revealing and
you
telling.
can do that in such a pharisaical, self-righteous way, of which I think I was doing. But anyway, as I read my Bible, like I tend to believe that everything is God's. And, and while we did have, some laws in the Old Testament about tithing, and it's like, all right, you have to do this. Like as a New Testament believer, I feel like Jesus is calling us to even more, Yeah. And in 2 Corinthians 9, it says we should do what we've decided in our heart in terms of our giving. So it's like, this isn't a prescriptive thing where we're going to tell you how much you should give or anything like that. But I think it's important that we're continuing to grow in our generosity, continuing to stretch in our generosity. And I think as we do that prayerfully, and we're led by that rather than guilt and obligation, again, 2 Corinthians 9 talks about that. I don't know. I think that gets us in this sweet spot that we want to be, especially if our goal is to give a lot of money away. But that's what we need to be.
Well, and one of the things that I think of is like, yes, there were a lot of rules that we were given in the Old Testament. But in the New Testament, we have 2 rules, which is to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves. And if we are living by those rules, the outflow of that ends up being probably more,
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it overflows, that love for God and love for people overflows into every aspect of our life. Our finances are just one of them.
Yeah, and when you understand what you've been forgiven, it's a lot easier to forgive, And
Yeah.
and that's a little bit of a different point, but similar idea though. Like when you understand how much you've been given, like it makes it easier to give.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so anyway, that's an important key, like to continue to grow and stretch in your generosity, because and again, going back to our story, how we reached that goal, if we would have stopped at 10%, like we wouldn't be anywhere near there. Like, and not even just mathematically, like if we would have stopped at 10%, like we would have just been so far behind, we wouldn't even be close to this goal. So the numerical part of, all right, well, you give 20%, so you're giving twice as much. Like that'll help you get there twice as fast. It's not actually true. I think that might help you get there 10 times faster. And because in our case, it's like as we increased our giving, God started putting all this extra energy behind us. And so it was more than just us giving more. He came in and pushed us forward and propelled us forward. So point is, that's going to help you get to the goal faster.
That was really interesting to watch because you would we talk about this again in the book because this is just our story. But it's like we watched as we were trying to basically reach our own goals as best as we could. But as soon as we let God in a little bit more, like just gave him some more leeway to do things, that was when we saw really wild stuff happening. And just to this point, it was like, we have this goal of wanting to give away $1 million, but I don't think that we could have done that, without inviting God into it and being like, if you want us to do that, we'll do it.
Yeah.
If you have that for us, we'll do it. It doesn't make sense mathematically.
Yeah.
But we did it anyway. And man, we saw him come through in some really
cool
fun,
ways.
Cool, testimony ways.
So anyway, that is our 14-point checklist. And that is, I would say, again, like just summing this up, like if we were going to do this over or if we were starting from scratch now and wanted to do this, these are the steps that we'd follow.
There you go.
So if you want this, we actually have this in PDF form. We can go ahead and get you a copy of this. But here's what I want you to do. Send me a DM on Instagram at SeedTime or send me an email, bob@seedtime.com. And we'll get you a copy of this and we'll send it over. And we actually sell this on our site. But as a thank you for being a podcast listener, we'd love to send it to you.
Yeah.
What else? What else is on the docket in the agenda?
It's a great day. It's a great day to be alive.
It's a great day to be alive. And so I think that's it.
I think that's it.
We appreciate you listening.
Yes.
You're awesome. You are on our prayer list and really value and appreciate you more than you realize. Go ahead and share us with anybody who needs it. And we'll see you in the next episode. See ya.